her local church and had just graduated high school with grades good enough to get her into medical school. Her dream was to become a pediatrician. Friends described her as someone who lit up every room she walked into. In August 1993, Tanja August 13, 1993. A sunny Tuesday afternoon in a quiet Dutch suburb. 18-year-old Tanja Groen leaves her student dorm on a yellow bicycle to go to a freshman party just a few kilometers away. She is never seen again. No body, no ransom call, no arrest. 32 years later, this case is still tearing the Netherlands apart. This is the story of the disappearance that refuses to die. Tanja Groen was born on June 23, 1975, in the small town of Schinveld in the southern Limburg, the Netherlands. By all accounts, August 13, 1993. A sunny Tuesday afternoon in a quiet Dutch suburb. 18-year-old Tanja Groen leaves her student dorm on a yellow bicycle to go to a freshman party just a few kilometers away. She is never seen again. No body, no ransom call, no arrest. 32 years later, this case is still tearing the Netherlands apart. This is the story of the disappearance that refuses to die. Tanja Groen was born on June 23, 1975, in the small town of Schinveld in the southern Limburg, the Netherlands. By all accounts, she was the definition of a golden child. Smart, athletic, kind, and impossibly optimistic. She played field hockey, was a youth leader at her local church, and had just graduated high school with grades good enough to get her into medical school. Her dream was to become a pediatrician. Friends described her as someone who lit up every room she walked into. In August 1993, Tanja moved about 30 kilometers north to the city of Maastricht to start her first year at Maastricht University. She moved into a student dorm in the quiet neighborhood called De Hague. She didn't have a car, so her parents lent her an old yellow Kreidler ladies' bicycle, the same bike that will become the single most famous piece of evidence in this case. Friday, June 8, 1993, was the official welcome weekend for freshmen. That night, Tanja attended a big party at a student association called Circumflex in the city center. Photos from that evening show her smiling wide, wearing a white blouse and jeans, her long blonde hair tied back. She left the party sometime after midnight. Witnesses are fuzzy on the exact time. CCTV from a nearby bank shows her walking her bike across the Wilhelmina Bridge at exactly 0:47 a.m. She's alone. She's heading south, back toward her dorm in De Hague, a route that, on a bike, should take no more than 15 minutes. The route is well lit, mostly along a major road called the Kennedybrug, and then a bike path that runs parallel to the Maas River. It's not a dangerous area. Maastricht had, and still has, an extremely low violent crime rate. Tanja never makes it home. The next morning, her roommate notices that Tanja's bed hasn't been slept in. The yellow bike is missing. By evening, her parents are called. By Monday, the entire country knows her face. The Dutch police treated this as a critical missing person from minute one, something they almost never do for an 18-year-old who's been gone less than a day. Why? Because Tanja Groen did not fit the profile of someone who would run away. No depression, no boyfriend drama, drugs, money problems, nothing. She had just bought new furniture for her dorm room 2 days earlier. Her purse, ID, bank card, and the equivalent of about 80 euros in cash were all left behind. Only her keys and a very small amount of pocket money were gone. Hundreds of volunteers, police dogs, divers, and even a helicopter with infrared searched every inch of the route. The yellow bike was found the very next day, Monday, October 11th, abandoned in a bush just 800 meters from her dorm. The front tire was flat. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no fingerprints that didn't belong to Tanja. And then, nothing. With no body and no crime scene, the rumors started immediately, and many people and detectives began to come up with different theories. Theory 1. Hit and run. Some believe Tanja was struck by a car. Panicked driver dumped her body in the river, but the moss was dragged for weeks. Her bike showed no damage consistent with a car collision, and no one reported hitting anyone that night. Theory 2. She fell in the river drunk. Tanja had been drinking, witnesses said maybe 4 or 5 beers over several hours. Her blood alcohol would have been around 0.08, tipsy, not wasted. And again, the bike was found inland, 300 meters from the riverbank. If she fell in, how did the bike get there? Theory 3. Stranger abduction. This is the one most people landed on. A predator saw a pretty girl alone on a bike, forced her into a vehicle, and that was it. The problem? 0 witnesses, 0 tire tracks, 0 screams heard by anyone. Here's where the case takes a horrifying turn. In 1992, just 1 year earlier, a 11-year-old boy named Nicky Verstappen was abducted from a summer camp less than 40 kilometers from Maastricht and sexually assaulted and murdered. The killer wasn't caught until 2018. When DNA finally identified a local man named Jos Breck, suddenly people started asking, could the same person have taken Tanja? Police compared notes. The modus operandi was completely different. Nicky was taken from a tent in the woods, Tanja from a busy road. Breck's DNA was not on the bicycle. Still, the Dutch public was now convinced they had a serial predator. Fast forward to 2003. A career criminal named Andy de Groot, arrested for a series of violent rapes in the Maastricht area. While in custody, he starts bragging to cellmates that he knows what happened to that student girl with the yellow bike. He claims he and an accomplice picked her up when her tire went flat, offered to help, then abducted her. He says they took her to a remote cabin, raped her for several days, and eventually strangled her and buried her under the floorboards. Police tear the cabin apart. Nothing. They search nearby fields with ground-penetrating radar. Nothing. De Groot eventually admits he made the whole thing up to get better prison conditions. But here's the chilling part. He knew details never released to the public. The exact brand of the bicycle, Kreidler, the color of Tanja's blouse that night, and the fact that her tire was flat. He claimed he read it in a magazine. No magazine ever published those details. In 2013, a man walks into a police station in Germany, just across the border, and tells detectives he helped bury Tanja Groen in 1993. His name is Pierre van de Ven, another convicted rapist. He says his accomplice was a now-deceased criminal named Cor, who supposedly confessed on his deathbed that he accidentally killed Tanja during a botched abduction and forced Pierre to help bury her in an unmarked grave in Belgium. Police launched the largest excavation in Belgian history, 80,000 square meters forest searched with cadaver dogs and excavators. Millions of euros. Van de Ven is charged with filing a false report. But again, he knew the flat tire detail. And he drew a map that placed the supposed grave within 200 meters of where cadaver dogs had strong hits years earlier. By 2021, the case was ice cold. Then something unprecedented happened. A Dutch journalist named Peter R. de Vries, probably the most famous crime reporter in Europe, announced he was personally putting up a €1 million reward for the tip that solves the case. It is still, to this day, the largest reward ever offered in the Netherlands. Within weeks, police received over 300 new tips. One of them seemed promising. An anonymous letter claiming Tanja was buried under a newly poured concrete floor of a farm in 1993. Again, excavation. Again, nothing. Peter R. de Vries was assassinated in broad daylight in Amsterdam just 2 weeks after announcing the reward. Most believe it was retaliation for a completely different case he was working on, but the timing sent chills through everyone following Tanja's story. As of 2025, the case is still active. Cold Case team has grown to 25 full-time detectives. They are now convinced Tanja met with foul play and that someone out there knows exactly where she is. In 2024, they announced they have a strong suspect, a man who lived along her route in 1993, owned a white van, and has a history of sexual violence against young women. His name has never been released because Dutch law is extremely strict about naming suspects who haven't been charged. His property was searched extensively in 2022. Cadaver dogs alerted strongly in the garden. Ground-penetrating radar showed disturbances. They dug. They found animal bones and construction debris. The suspect lawyered up and refuses to talk. But here's what keeps investigators awake at night. In 2018, when police finally solved the Nicky Verstappen case with DNA, they discovered the killer had kept the boy's underwear as a trophy for 20 years. Detectives now believe Tanja's killer may have done the same thing. They have publicly begged in 2024. If you bought a second-hand Kreidler lady's bicycle in the early 2000s, or if your husband or father came home with a woman's white blouse from 1993, contact us. No question asked. Tanja Groen would be 50 years old today. Her parents, Cor and Adrai, have never moved from their house in Shinvold. They keep her bedroom exactly as it was. Every year on her birthday, the entire town ties yellow ribbons around trees, the color of her bicycle. Her mother still says, "I don't need to know who. I just need to know where so I can bring my daughter home." The Dutch police have publicly stated they will never close this case. Not in 10 years. Not in 50. Not ever. If this case affected you the way it affected me, leave a yellow heart emoji in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I'll see you in the next one. And until Tanja is found, stay safe out there.